So I try to make a point on the success story of microfinance, providing financial services, and that goes beyond microcredit. So beware, it's much more than microcredit, and for poor people. With poor people, I'm talking about 40% of the world's population, so roughly 2.8 billion people are regarded as poor. They live on less than $1 a day. So you may ask the question, actually, yes, I have read about these newspaper articles, critical articles on microfinance, so why should we talk on microfinance tonight? Don't poor people need other things more urgently than such as shelter, health, education, peace, and things like that? And then second, if you have seen the poor performance of financial institutions in our part of the world, not only benefiting us, but putting a lot of harm to people, how can this be a good idea to state? And it's really a crazy idea, isn't it, to claim that microfinance, that financial services not only do no harm to poor people, but actually benefit and improve their lives. And this is how what I would like to talk about tonight. And then the third point, hasn't microfinance just proved to be a failed idea? The answers, the somewhat counterintuitive answers to that are some kind of an outline of this presentation. So poor people actually do need financial services. They just don't need financial, they need it desperately in order to improve their lives. And there is a solution there. Microfinance has been part of the solution rather than part of the problem. And finally, we can learn for ourselves from these success experiences. So what has financial services got to do with poor people? Let me briefly introduce you perhaps to 4 poor people and bringing in front of you their financial needs, their dreams, their aspirations, and the challenges they are confronted with. Let's talk about Josephine. She is a micro-entrepreneur living in the Congolese capital of Kinshasa, and she wants to open up her sewing shop and needs to buy a used sewing machine. So she needs a loan. 150 euro is enough to buy a used sewing machines. She can pay back the loan with the proceeds of her micro business, and this is what's the classical microcredit story you're well aware of. Okay. Then we talk about Pacifico. He is a smallholder from Mindanao Islands, from southern Philippines, one of those islands that have been particularly hard hit by natural disasters, typhoons. I think the last one was end of last year. And so he has got 4 sheep and 3 let's say cows, and after the typhoon he is left with 1 cow, and this is the only assets he has got. So he needs desperately some protection, but because he knows for sure that the next natural disaster is about to happen in the near future. Third, Maria. She is a casual laborer from Guayaquil in Ecuador, and she's had a bad childhood, and one thing she has learned in life is that she wants her daughter to have a better education. And so she will make everything possible in order to ensure that her daughter can go to school, but she doesn't have the money. Clarita is 2 years old, and in 4 years, when she comes to primary school, she won't have the money to buy her textbooks, she won't have the money to buy her a school uniform, so she needs to put aside some money, which she actually can, but yes, she doesn't have a bank account, she doesn't have a savings account, so this is what she needs to save up to make her dreams for her daughter Clarita come true. And then finally, Ken, a self-employed man from Nairobi, he needs to send home money to his family in a remote village in southern Kenya, and Andrew talked about this mobile banking system in place. Figure out Kenya is a country with 15% of the population have access to most basic financial services, while half of the population, and this is true, half of the population of Kenya have a mobile phone. So they are very used to mobile phones, and so they get services to make SMS transactions to send money home. Okay, so what can we learn from these stories? First of all, poor people are exposed to a number of shocks, to a number of financial shocks, and all you know what unpredictable shocks can look like. Bad health, sickness and unemployment, not finding a job any longer, but also a number of predictable shocks. What is a predictable shock? I just talked about one, sending the children to school, because that is pretty predictable when this will happen. But also predictable shocks like marriage. It's a huge predictable shock, because in an Indian village, to having to organize a marriage can cost you a fortune. Okay, so poor people are young and they are as talented as just other people. But the problem is they don't get the equal rights to tap their potential, to have the access to education, to have their chances in making up a business. So many more people have to be reached out to in order to tap this potential. So they don't have protection against these shocks I just talked about, bad health and ultimately also old age. Just one word about India, because we have heard so much on India. It's one of, besides China, the most rapidly aging populations that you can imagine in developing countries. So how does microfinance address these needs poor people have? Microfinance institutions, and I think the best ones you can count are roughly 150 to 200, they have been providing microcredit alone for 150 million people. This is an enormous number of poor people being served. But they're not limited to microcredit, as I said. Some of them offer technology-based solutions in order to reach out for the more rural population, and in Africa more than 80% of the population live in rural areas. So mobile banking is one of the key technological breakthroughs microfinance institutions can use in order to reach out to these clients. Offering savings accounts is sometimes more important even than microcredit. Everybody's criticizing microcredit while not knowing that for some people micro savings is the answer rather than microcredit. And then microinsurance products are being rolled out in many countries, although I have to say this is still at the beginning of the story, but still shocks like life or death of a family breadwinner, livestock insurance, crop insurance, and then natural disasters all can be insured. It's not yet on a large-scale basis, but the results so far have been promising. So this talk can lead to the conclusion that has been made in the beginning of the microfinance success story, leading to this Mohamed Yunus winning the Nobel Prize. Yes, it should be the magic bullet. It is the concept to eradicate poverty. There's no other. This is the first ideal, which will not be a failed idea. Okay, so but the opposite is true. It's not the magic bullet. It's far from being that. So still, many people that have been reached out to, that have been served by microfinance institutions successfully, they are still poor. They're still poor people. But it has been showed clearly that they are better off. They can better manage the consequences of their poverty. And that might be a result that may be not quite ambitious. What, you're telling us that they should just keep their level? And they said, yes, it can be a success if people maintaining their level and not slipping further deeper into poverty, and if they find a mechanism to make a more decent life. So smoothing consumption is an issue, but also stabilize their income and ultimately also increasing their income. This has happened as well. and find a moment and a way to better sleep, and not having to think of surviving the next day, but rather surviving the next year. So restore confidence in the future, particularly important for post-conflict countries. I mean, the confidence is not there, and you have to restore it, and this is a very painful process. A savings account can do a lot here, okay? So empowering women, lots have been, a lot of studies have been there. I have seen this in Indian villages myself, that the women have told me, yes, we're still poor, but now we are more vocal, and we want to be a member of the Gram Sabha, of the local municipal a gathering of people, and be more political, be more vocal, and express what we want. So this is a clear progress, I think. And then microfinance has also been successful in safeguarding the social cohesion, which is always at risk if if political turmoil happens, but also natural disasters happen. So this social cohesion, which is a very important public good, is being safeguarded in the absence of any social security. I mean, if somebody falls ill, there is no such thing as a public health insurance from the public sector, okay? So it's not the magic bullet, but still, it has done a lot of positive thinking, and it helped to change society. So is it good per se? Again, of course not, it isn't. So you have all perhaps heard about this abuses, the bad practices that have been going on in India. There were stories about people, microfinance clients, having committed suicide in order to pay off their debt in some way. But the true story is that if you want to practice microfinance successfully, you have to do it in a fair and transparent way. You have to practice responsible finance, and this goes hand in hand. Even the most professional microfinance institutions have been applying these principles, and this was part of their success. Okay, so fair and transparent treatment, that means that you have to show clearly what the client has to pay in a loan contract. So that they know, and this is also a language issue here, and is the loan contract in English or is it in Kiswahili? That makes a difference indeed. And then offering products that client really needs, and also more importantly, they understand. Andrew is totally right, this is an issue here. And then sound credit technology that actually avoids over-indebtedness and don't make the customer believe that it can repay the loan when it actually cannot. And so to be very honest and frank to the client in order to avoid over-indebtedness. And there were some practices in the area of you can get a loan in 20 minutes and will ask no critical questions, and you just get the loan. Okay, so this is clearly not a responsible treatment of customers. So what ultimately can we learn for ourselves? And indeed, microfinance as well is an excellent learning field. And contrary to what one might suppose, that is always us that tell third worlders what to do. We should, and this has been said as well tonight, we should be able to listen, and be more able to listen than we did in the past, of course. So that will bring about many more solutions. And one of them is that financial sectors, which we have a certain skeptical attitude towards, a certain critical attitude towards, they are nevertheless fundamental in improving poor people's lives, and I think this is true also for our world, and so it's really indispensable for our well-being. And the best microfinance institutions, they have committed to sound consumer protection principles, which gave rise to the hope that we are also perhaps creating more consumer awareness as consumers of financial services. I mean, every one of you has perhaps was angry about your bank because you didn't understand the conditions. You had to pay something you didn't know you had to pay. So there's a lot of room for improvement here. So just to encourage that the lesson of microfinance is that we could and we should be much more aware of our role as an actor in this field. And also, as I said, the best microfinance institutions, they have proved also to be the most responsible ones, the most transparent ones, the most fair ones. So business ethics, and this is another lesson learned here, is good for business. So we should get involved with finance with that positive outlook rather than less. Don't be ashamed, but beware of and don't have false expectations, particularly with microfinance. It has been a success story. It has provided lots of good things to poor people, and so let's continue with that. But also we need to be sure that it is being practiced in a responsible way, so that even in a couple of years' time we can say business ethics is good for business. Thank you very much.